Blessing of the Lord be upon you.
Bless you in the name of the Lord.
Thank you. Mark, chapter 13, verses 32 through 33. Seems like a short passage. But don't worry, I can make a long sermon out of a short message. But concerning that day or that hour, no one knows. Not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. Be on guard, keep awake, for you do not know when the time will come. There are certain words that can send shockwaves through a household. For a housewife, one of the most dreaded announcements might be, your mother-in-law is coming to visit. Suddenly the whole atmosphere changes. The clock starts ticking. The adrenaline kicks in. Dust that was invisible yesterday is now glowing like neon. The laundry pile looks like Mount Everest. The kids are given military-level instructions. Pick that up. Put that down. Don't touch anything. Smile when she walks in. Why? Because somebody important is coming. Someone who notices things, someone whose arrival matters, someone whose opinion carries weight, and the housewife knows if she's coming, we need to be ready. But imagine this. What if the mother-in-law didn't give a time? What if she said, I'll drop by sometime today or tomorrow? You wouldn't sit down and relax. You wouldn't take a nap. You wouldn't leave the dishes for later. You'd stay alert. You'd keep the house ready. You'd live the whole day with a sense of expectation because she could walk through the door at any moment. Well, Jesus is saying the same thing about his return, isn't he? He doesn't give us a date. He doesn't give us a time. He simply says, not out of dread, out of devotion. Stay awake out of devotion. Not because he's coming to criticize, but because he's coming to consummate his kingdom. Not because he wants to catch us failing, but because he wants to find us faithful. The point is simple. When someone important is coming, you live ready. Jesus ends the Olivet Discourse with a warning that is not meant to scare us, it's meant to wake us. He knows how easily the human heart drifts into spiritual drowsiness. So he gives us one clear command that echoes across the ages. Stay awake. Not physically, that would be impossible, wouldn't it? But spiritually. Not anxiously, but faithfully. Not fearfully, but expectantly. Let's walk through this brief passage, this brief, urgent passage. The unknowable hour. In Mark chapter 13, verse 32, Jesus said, no one knows, not even the angels, nor the Son, but only the Father. And Mark does something here that causes a little bit of confusion among readers who aren't paying an attention to the entire context of the Scriptures. Even scholars will mess up on this. It seems Jesus changes the topic without indicating the change. You know, if you're talking with someone and you're talking about something and they change the topic into something else, but they don't tell you they're changing it to something else, what are you talking about? That, we got an expression, boy, that come out of left field, didn't it? Right? Well, it seems that Jesus is continuing to speak on the destruction of Jerusalem, but Jesus has just given several signs that would introduce that event. He's told them basically when it's going to happen. happen and what to look out for. Matthew gives us the necessary information we need to clear up this misconception. He does that in Matthew chapter 24 and verse 3. He says there, as he, Jesus, sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, "Tell us, when will these things be, destruction of Jerusalem? What will be the signs of your coming?" Again, destruction of Jerusalem, but adds, "and the end of the age." What's all this mean? And like, is the destruction of Jerusalem the end of, is that the end of all things? Is there another end of all things? Explain this to us, Jesus. So Jesus is answering the second part of the apostles' question, and it's reframing it in his second coming. Now, his second physical coming. Because in the destruction of Jerusalem, there is a coming of Jesus that is a coming in judgment that the people would see and say, Jesus brought this because of the what the Pharisees, the scribes, and religious leaders were doing, how corrupt the temple had become, and how corrupt Judaism had become, all of those things. And now Jesus has moved on to his second physical coming at the end of the ages, the end of the world. Jesus shuts the door on speculation. And false teachers continue to speculate, don't they? How many times have people prophesied Jesus is coming back? He's coming back. You bet he's coming back in just a few days, or he's coming back in the next year. He's speculation. And Jesus shut the door on that. The timing of his return is absolutely unknowable for us. Why does he say this? Because if the hour were predictable, watchfulness would die. Hey, he's coming back January 1st, 2027. Okay, I can wait until December 31st to get my life straightened out. That's not what it's intended, is it? Not at all. Ignorance in this case is a gift intended to keep us awake, not knowing when he's coming back. Keeps us awake. If the date were posted, urgency would evaporate. I don't have to do anything right now. I've got time. Time is on my side. Yes, well, okay, I'll quit trying to sing. The call to watchfulness. What is Jesus saying? Mark chapter 13, verse 33, the first part of that. Be on guard, stay awake. Be on guard, stay awake. That's two simple commands. Succinct commands. Boom, boom. Right there. Be on guard. What do you guard? Well, guard your heart. Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23. Keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flow the springs of life. I love that passage. I preached on that a long time ago. Maybe I need to pull that sermon out and preach it again. But there it is. What's inside us is what's going to flow outside of us. So we better keep the inside clean. But it's also guard your doctrine. Jude chapter 1, verse 3, for those who use their iPhones and such. Beloved, although I was very eager to write to you about our common salvation, I found it necessary to write appealing to you to contend for the faith that was once delivered, or once for all delivered to the saints. Guard your doctrine, contend for the faith. Now, not your faith, not subjective faith, not even in the sense objective, objective, the faith, the gospel, the new covenant. We've got to contend for it. What does it mean to contend? When two teams get out on the football field, they're contending. It's like you gotta fight for it. Stand up and be brave. But guard your doctrine to that point that you're willing to contend for the faith. Third, guard your walk. Colossians chapter 2, verses 6 and 7. Therefore, there's a signpost, right? Something he said before this, that the Apostle Paul wrote before this, is wrapped up in this. As you received Christ Jesus the Lord, so walk in Him, rooted and built up in Him, established in the faith which you're supposed to contend for, just as you were taught, abounding in thanksgiving. Be thankful you've got the faith to contend for, and walk in it. Guard that walk, because it is so precious. That's what we're going to be judged on. Our deeds. How we act. And then guard your affections. 1 John chapter 2, verse 15 through 17. Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the desires of the flesh and the desires of the eyes and the pride of life, is not from the Father, but is from the world. And the world is passing away along with its desires, but whoever does the will of God abides forever. That will of God, what is that? Well, that's the faith that we are established in, rooted and built up in, that we are to walk in, that we are to contend for. Put it in our hearts and guard it there. Guard our hearts with that. That would make a sermon right there in itself, wouldn't it? But I've got to go on, because I've got more written down here. Jesus says, stay awake. Stay spiritually alert. Stay morally serious. Well, isn't it okay to tell a little lie every now and then? Yeah, if you're a politician, I guess. This is political season. How many lies are there out there right now? But of course, we've got situations where there are sometimes what scholars call the righteous lie. But we've got to be morally serious. We've got to have some standards. If we don't have standards, aren't we just like the world? Because the world just, whatever floats your boat, whatever trips your trigger, whatever makes you happy. Stay prayerfully attentive. God's in control. I'm thankful He's in control, because I could hardly handle my own life. I don't think I can control anybody else's life. But see, that's not good. Stay ready. Why? Because obedience to these commands is necessary. Pure and simple. Last part of verse 33, for you do not know when the time will come. You don't know when it is, so you better be ready when the time comes. Our ignorance as to the day and hour fuels our vigilance. If I knew He's coming in the next hour, I'm going to be doing some pretty serious prayer and asking for forgiveness. Now here's a question. What happens to a soldier who gets caught sleeping while on guard duty?
Gets sent to the prison. Gets shot.
Gets disciplined, brought up court-martialed, and can be shot if the enemy gets in because he's sleeping on God. The master's assignment, verses 34 through 36. Listen to what Jesus says. Simple parable, very simple. And what does the parable do? Here is an earthly story that should prompt us to think about spiritual things. It's like a man going on a journey. When he leaves home and puts his servants in charge, each with his work, and commands the doorkeeper to stay awake. Therefore stay awake, for you do not know when the master of the house will come in the evening or at midnight, or when the rooster crows or in the morning, lest he come suddenly and find you asleep. Or, as we talked about at the beginning, you don't know when your mother-in-law's coming. Better get everything ready. So a master goes on a journey. It's a prophetic picture of Jesus' ascension to heaven. He went to heaven, but what does he say? I'm coming back. I'm coming back to get you, to take you to my Father's house. I'm preparing a place for you. You better be ready when I come. He leaves his servants to relax, take it easy, be on a spiritual vacation. Work. He leaves his servants work to be accomplished, each with his, or dare I say, her work. That's our calling, isn't it? What's the song we sing? To the work, we are servants of God. Really? Okay. I want to be a worker for the Lord. Okay, here's a job. Oh, that's the preacher's job. That's somebody else's job. That's the elder's job. That's a deacon's job. What's my job? Well, he tells the doorkeeper or doorkeepers to stay awake. And that could be in the context of like the priests and the Levites and the Pharisees and the scribes and such that he had really been contending with, that they weren't doing their jobs properly. But he says, stay awake. The leaders of the church must be extra vigilant due to greater responsibility. And there's a greater responsibility when we teach, because if we don't teach what is right, we're going to face a greater judgment. That's very important. Then Jesus does something. He lists 4 Roman night watches. Their days were, they didn't have clocks like we do, but they had watches for the night. And they had the evening watch, the midnight watch. They had the rooster crow watch, which was right about first light, and then they had the dawn watch. So you got 12 hours there, and you got 4, so 3 hours. You go like from 6 to 9, 9 to 12, 12 to 3 would be rooster crow. I don't know why they called it that, but that's what they did. And then you have the dawn watch. These are times when people are, what? The most tired. And probably doing what? Sleeping. Well, the point is that he's going to return when most people don't expect it. And listen, you can physically sleep, but be spiritually awake, alert, alive, enthusiast. The point is, he will return when many least expect. Don't be one of those persons. Stay awake. Be on guard. Jesus is expressing the danger of being found asleep, and we could also, go to the parable of the 10 virgins, right? But spiritual sleep is what? Well, it's compromise. Not contending for the faith, but saying, oh, well, just whatever goes, goes. Distraction. I've got these worldly things I really have to take care of. I haven't got time for the spiritual. That's not good. Take care of the spiritual, worldly things fall in place. Apathy. I don't care. I don't care when Jesus is coming back. I don't care that Jesus died on the cross. I just don't care. What was it that the guy said about watching a movie and something about, well, you'll have to spend time in purgatory. He says, that's okay, I'll be with all my friends.
Oh, that was last night.
Yeah, I'll be with all my friends. Prayerlessness, especially effective prayerlessness, and that's where we're actually talking to God, talking to the Father, and a neglect of our calling and failing to do our duties, the work that He has assigned to us. So, the danger's not missing the date. And a lot of people, that's what they're concerned with. We're missing the date. We got to study. We got to find this little bit of evidence and this little bit of evidence and put it together. And say, oh, this is the day He's coming back. That's not what's important. The danger is in failing the duty of being a disciple of Jesus Christ. Because if we're doing the duty, the date isn't important at all, is it? You've got nothing to worry about. There's that universal command, verse 37, what I say to you, because he's talking to 4 of his apostles, right? We've figured that out. I say to all, stay awake. So it's just not for the disciples there on the Mount of Olives, it's for the entire church across all ages. Watchfulness is the Christian posture, not fear. But if we're afraid of Jesus coming back today or tomorrow, we got a problem. It's called not being faithful. So, it's not fear, it's faithfulness that should concern us. Not panic, but perseverance. Then I'm constantly moving forward. Not speculation. Well, I'm hoping it's not tomorrow. I hope it's day after tomorrow. It gives me tomorrow to get ready. But, tomorrow's the day that never comes, because when it gets here, it's today. It's about obedience. That's what Jesus is talking about. Obedience, our duty. What does staying awake look like? Stay awake morally. Sin puts the soul to sleep. What happens if we do a sin and nothing happens? I think I'll do it again. And again and again until what becomes a habit. And after it becomes a habit, you know what it becomes? A lifestyle. That's danger. That's morally going to sleep, putting the soul to sleep. Stay awake doctrinally. Truth keeps the mind sharp. a lack of confusion in the mind. Stay awake missionally, do the work the Master assigned. Stay awake directionally, look devotionally. Boy, how did I mess that up? Stay awake devotionally. Prayer keeps the heart warm. Scripture keeps the eyes open. And stay awake expectantly. Live as if Christ could return today. Why? Because he can. Very easy. It was customary that individuals in a sword fight, now I still think that, like, if there's Olympic competition for fencing, you know what fencing is, not building a fence like I did recently, but fencing, sword fighting, that when you start, you warn your opponents that you're beginning to attack, and you just shout, "On guard!" And the other person's, "Okay, I'm ready." Jesus is telling us to be on guard, right? Here's the problem. Satan doesn't tell us, warn us. On guard when he's ready to attack. When he's bringing a temptation before us. He doesn't. He sneak attacks. He doesn't play by any rules. And he's counting on our ignorance and our apathy. And those are his strategic weapons against us. He uses ourself against us. That's why Jesus says, be on guard. That's the final word basically in the chapter. It's not a timeline, it's a command. Stay awake, stay on guard. The Master's coming, the hour is unknown, the command is clear, our responsibility is real, the reward is eternal. That's a lesson for today. I run out of material, I'll give up and go on. But if you have a need, let your request be made known as we stand and sing the invitation song.